Thank Oh, Walter, stop it. What was I going to say? I forgot. You just totally flustered me. Ms. Montana sent me a little paragraph about her subject matter. Her subject matter is not of the garden variety. So I really couldn't come up with a song that I knew that we could sing that would make any sense, so I made one up. So we have a couple of chants that we're going to do in tandem. I will sing this through to sort of model it for you. Isn't that the proper word? I'm modeling this for you. I'm going to model some singing behaviors. And then I'll teach it to you one line at a time, and then you'll get it, you'll sing it, you'll feel better, you'll go home. It'll be good. It goes like this. In the freedom of the silence, in the darkness, with my inner goddess I dwell. And I feel her power. That's it. What the heck? I had 20 minutes to write it. So I will give you each line and you sing it back to me, okay? Here we go. In the freedom of the silence, in the darkness, in the darkness, with my inner goddess, I dwell. Let's wait for it.
Wait for it.
And I feel her power.
Let's just try.
In the freedom of the silence, in the darkness, with my inner goddess, with my inner goddess, I dwell. And I feel her power.
I think I got it.
You think you got it?
Yeah, I do.
Really?
Because I'm a goddess, see?
You're a goddess.
You wrote it for us.
And you're a singer.
Yeah,
but even
try.
people who are not singers can get this.
I think we've got
Probably.
it. By George, I think we've got it.
Okay,
All
so
right.
let's do it again. In the freedom of the silence, in the darkness, with my inner goddess, I dwell, yada yada. Okay, here we go. 2, 3. In the freedom of the silence, in the darkness, with my inner goddess, I dwell. And I feel her power. In the freedom of the silence, in the darkness, with my inner goddess, I dwell. Oh yes, I dwell. Oh yeah.
Feel it.
And I feel her power. I think I'm going to take back and workshop this song just a little bit. I think it's more of an R&B solo piece. Instead, we're going to do another chant. Laura, why don't you tell the folks about it?
God, I love humor melting into heart space, all right? Let's let that humor melt us into our heart space. And we're going to reprise a chant that David and I led you in a few weeks ago when I was here. I am opening to the power of love. That's the bass chant that I'm going to continue with y'all. We'll be the drone singing that. David will play around and do some other words. You're free to join him too if that speaks to you, but if it's more settling to be in the consistency of what I'm singing, sing that with me. So it goes like this.
I'm opening. I'm opening. I'm opening to the Spirit of love. I'm opening. I'm opening. I'm opening to the Spirit of love. Let thy love flow through me. Let thy love flow through me. Let thy love flow to the Spirit. Let thy love flow. Let thy love flow through me. Thy Spirit set me free. Let thy love flow through me. Let thy Spirit set me free. I am opening my heart. I am flowering to the sun. I am opening my heart to the Spirit. Flower to the sun. I'm opening. I'm opening.
Let your body open.
I'm opening to the Spirit of love.
Express that as you wish.
I'm opening. I'm opening. I'm opening to the Spirit of love. Let thy love flow through me. Let thy love flow through me. Let thy love flow to the Spirit. Let thy love stay right there. Let thy love flow through me. Let thy love flow through me. Let thy love flow to me. Let thy love flow through me. Let thy Spirit set me free. Let thy love flow through me. Let thy Spirit set me free. Let thy love flow to the Spirit of love.
Thank you. That was beautiful. We are opening. I'm going to invite the children to come up so they can go with their teacher. Let's have the children come up and be pressed.
This is a song I wrote 150 years ago, approximately, and it's on my terribly old CD. And it's wonderful how out of difficulty and darkness and grief can come amazing circumstances, can come amazing gifts. And this song, I think, speaks a little bit to what Cate is talking about. I'll just shut up now.
grab this mic first thing. A million years ago, when I first got into the whole New Thought, New Age movement, I decided that I wanted to be enlightened, and set that as an absolute on my to-do list. And I really wanted to be a spiritual teacher. And I wanted to bring the light to everyone. Well, of course, I had to first bring it to myself. And fast forward a million years, thank you, David, it has been a million years, and I find myself speaking about the darkness. Life is strange. I actually ran across a quote from C.S. Lewis last night, and that just really kind of, well, just jumped out at me, so I'll read it to you. Holy places are dark places. It is life and strength, not knowledge and words, that we get in them. Holy wisdom is not clear and thin like water, but thick and dark like blood. When I was a little girl, I'm going to have to go way, way back here on this story because it's everybody's story. And what I've discovered is that stories are us. And my story is your story and vice versa. The colors look different. The chapters and verse reads a little bit different, but it's all essentially, we're all one. And when I was a little girl, I was raised on a farm, very, very blessed in that. I was an adamantly right brain entity in a left brain world. But I was an only child raised on a farm, so I was distanced from pretty much everything that would ever have to put me in my left brain. I was on my ponies, on my horses, and riding through the woods, and catching minnows and tadpoles in the streams, and swimming naked in the farm pond at night, and listening to the fox bark in the distance and the mist crawl across the water. And it was like, oh my, and the satin feel of the water on my body. And I was in heaven. I was in heaven. And I was full, and I was in my body, and rich in life. And school was a place that I went to be tortured daily for several months out of the year. And it had nothing to do with me. I couldn't understand what these people were talking about and why I had to learn any of these things. And I spent every day in that schoolroom staring out the window, wishing I was back home and in the woods and with my horses. And so education didn't imprint me. I was a wretched student, and I think my teachers passed me along just to get rid of me, until I reached about age 14. And what I didn't realize in my exploration of the world as a young girl in the world, full-bodied, full-blooded, sensuous, present, is that, interestingly enough, we're not just right brain, left brain entities, with the right brain speaking of feminine domains and the gestalt of holism and intuitive processes, and the masculine left brain with all of its intellectual structure and logic and dynamics. Our eyes, actually, are masculine and feminine in their structure. It's really interesting because women have a tendency to have more rods in their eyes, which is in the whole peripheral of the pupil. And the rods just are like a doorway. Everything passes through it. There is no filter. It's just the rods just let information in and let information out. And so there's no structure to it. And so that feminine part of me and just in the body and my eyes just let the world, and I was one with it. Now the cones narrow information, and they're all about focus, and they match very well with the left brain up here. And so I managed to avoid a lot of that conification of my life and my consciousness in school until I decided that I woke up one day at age 14 and went, you know, this isn't working for me. I am really, really tired of being the dunce. This hurts. It hurts more than letting this information and whatever it's going to do in. So I started to study, and I have to backtrack. I look back now and I realize that as a young child, I was in a state of grace a lot. I had peak experiences. Abraham Maslow talks about those. I actually would go into samadhi, being in nature and sitting in the grasses, absolutely in ecstasy. And I would talk about it, well, briefly for a few times. And then I learned not to talk about it because nobody knew what the hell I was talking about. So I started to study, and I gained left brain access. I became valedictorian, And I was journaling one day at age 19, and I realized that ecstasy was no longer part of my life. And I wondered what was going on. And it was really miraculous that I was so old to be aware of the veils that were coming across my consciousness. And I realized that I couldn't sit down and I couldn't hurl myself in the grass and watch and just throw myself into a sunset anymore and become one with it. Now there were considerations that would cross my mind. Was the grass wet? Ooh, I had new pants on. You know, I get them stained. Oh God, what is that ugly contrail doing across the face of the sun as it's going down? That shouldn't be there. I couldn't move into music anymore, which was always my first love. And just listen and drown in the sound. Now, this is back in the days of records, guys. What's that scratch? Is it too loud? Is it too soft? Am I annoying my parents? And so ecstasy was a thing of my past. But I went on, like we all do, and I did what society and my parents and everybody said I was supposed to do to be happy and fulfilled. I went out, got a college education, got a degree that wouldn't get me anywhere, fell into a television career, working, getting on-the-job training in videotape editing. And I became an engineer. I became a technician, electronic technician. Go figure. But I was wild to get into this kind of an arena. I was wild to embrace my left masculine side because this is what was going to give me validity, by God. Because sure as shooting, none of the rest of that passion and that glory and that just that sensuality and that just whatever it was that was racing through me, that just didn't seem to fit anywhere. I'm sure none of you can relate to this. So I spent a number of years in television, and I realized that the door had finally closed, and that I didn't even think anymore in terms of the ecstatic. And so, moving along, because I want to get to the good stuff, I got married, I got divorced, and at about age 30, you know, that first Saturn return kicked me in the ass. Got a divorce, and I realized that television and I was jetting all over the world, working for ABC, NBC, CBS, ESPN. I did sports, live sports, telecasting, me, and usually a 40-man crew. I was one of the guys. I cursed like a sailor, drank like a fish, smoked like a stag, developed the hide of a rhinoceros and a sailor's vocabulary. And at the end of it all, it was like, oh God, this isn't it either. So I was like, well, church never did it for me. So I don't know about this God thing. I was raised Episcopalian, which is the nearest thing to not being religious at all. Whiskey-palians, I think they call us. Anyway, and I'd even gone to a Catholic convent school, but that didn't rub off on me either. And so I was like, oh my God, there's got to be something more. Well, and then I fell into the New Age movement. And it was just like, oh my God, these are my people. This is something I can resonate to. And it was just amazing to finally walk into a gestalt, a right brain environment again, where people were talking, and the books I was reading was talking about holism and holistic, and that I was connected with everyone. And the vague bell goes off in my mind and goes, oh, I knew this as a child. I knew this. This is right on. And so I read a lot, left brain, cone vision, and then I read about the goddess. And I was just like, oh, there's a feminine side to God. By God, I always knew that. Wow, okay. And she was kind of a pale goddess, velvet Renaissance gowns, goddess tarot cards. And I looked at women standing and so, I did the moonlight holding hands and and praying for world peace and healing, and I was like, why is this so dangerous? This is just a bunch of women kindly, gently invoking grace and love and compassion for one another. Why is this was so freaking dangerous that it got stomped out 3,000 to 5,000 years ago. Didn't get it. The goddess was a pale shadow of herself in those circles. No fault. I didn't know either. And I meditated. These were my 3 kind of big entrees back into the right brain function and the feminine. I meditated and started having Kundalini experiences and cracked every center you can have and started going out of body and traveling through the universe, and it was just like, wow, I'm it. And I thought, okay, and that's when I put enlightenment on my to-do list. It was like, I could do this. I could do this. On by Thursday, I actually ended up in a school that said, 7 years you study with me, you will be enlightened when you walk out the other end. I still have friends in there 28 years later. But what I didn't realize in this amazing involvement, in this heady elixir of suddenly discovering that there was a soul and that there was really oomph to the word spirit, that it actually meant something. And my Reverend Peter's, voice in the church, it was just this dry, desiccated word. It didn't mean anything, but now it's like, oh my God. What I didn't see, however, was that it was very much an extension of the very thing I'd run away from. It was actually it was very intellectual in its own way. Here I am, I'm reading about quantum physics, people. Quantum physics and how consciousness impacts the quantum field. And I read Sir Roger Penrose says, oh, the quantum field is way too thick and gooey for consciousness to impact. You're actually impacting the Planck scale. Okay, information-based, the whole universe is information-based. And I'm like, yeah. So I didn't see how left brain I was, still, even in my approach to spirituality. And the goddess was a pale shadow that was so sweet and kind and loving and filled with light. And I'm like, oh, and then there was the light. It was all, well, of course, who doesn't want the light? You can't see a damn thing in the dark. But I was like, oh my God, I have to be the light. Oh, I am the light. My cells are made up of light. I have to embrace the light. I have to dance in the light. And it's just like, light. Well, when you realize it, the light is a masculine identity. The light has always, throughout human history, been associated with the masculine. It is the light of intelligence. It is the light of consciousness. It is the light, it is Apollo, it is communication. It's the light of the sun, and let it shine. And yes, we wouldn't be here without it, absolutely. But the darkness was never mentioned. And nobody wanted to go into the dark places. God knows I didn't want to go. It actually never even entered the conversation. So, I'm back in a left brain expression, even trying to get to God. And the to-do list got really fierce. I had to, by God, learn and manifest. And, the manifestation competitions, like, oh, well, I manifested a new car. And it's like, oh, how long did it take you? Oh, it really took me 2 weeks. Oh, wow. I went there. I embraced that. And, I had never really left the galloping pace of television. And the drive of the left brain and the beautiful masculine, which is focused and impetuous and on a march and goal-oriented. Well, that's what I did in my spirituality. And I'm sure, again, none of you here can relate to this. And I decided that I wanted to write about mysticism and science and what I was learning. I had transitioned from a career in television to working as a journalist for newspapers and magazines. And so writing was my creative gig. And I didn't want to write for a New Age magazine. I didn't want to preach to the choir. I wanted to write for the mainstream, because I was doing mainstream stuff in TV and then in newspapers. So I put that on my to-do list. and focused on it, meditated on it. We didn't have storyboards back in those days. We had just to-do lists. And for 7 years, I focused on that sucker. And for 7 years, I couldn't find a venue that would open or a door that would open. So I was like, well, this isn't working. To hell with it. I'm tired of being in the mainstream in journalism anyway. I'm tired of focusing on this. I'll go back to school. That's always that's a good fallback position for anybody. I'll go back to school. I'd already picked up a master's degree in psychology in my spiritual investigations to try to figure out what consciousness really was and what we knew about it, so that I could, left brain, figure it out. And so I went back to school. And so I didn't really need a high-power job. And I could kind of let some of the pressure go. And all I wanted was just some little something to help pay some of the bills with me and my partner and help pay for the dog food, you know? And, really. And out of the blue, about my first semester in, I got a phone call from a friend who said, hey, did you hear that those folks down at What the Bleep Do We Know are looking for a short-time, part-term office manager? And What the Bleep Do We Know was a film that was, all the filmmakers lived in my hometown, Yelm, Washington. And I was like, what the bleep, oh God, yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, really? Wow. And everything in my heart just exploded in that moment. And I was like, oh my God, I have to have that job more than anything in the world. So I got that job. Betsy Chassie, who was one of the filmmakers, interviewed me. She's twirling her hair and smoking a cigarette and foot tapping, because she's on a roll too. And she's one of my best friends, so I can say that. And she said, well, you know, we're going to just abuse the hell out of you, use all your writing talents, and you're not going to get paid for it. And I was like, that's fine. That's fine. So I knew, and she was right, and then things changed, and everything evolved, and I didn't do short-term, part-time office managing. I ended up on the very small marketing team. I started a online newsletter called The Bleeping Herald. I was interviewing John Hagelin and Jeffrey Satinover and Amit Goswami and Deepak Chopra and Barbara Marx Hubbard, and I was writing for the mainstream. And I went, oh my God, it worked. In the back of my right brain, something said, ding, ding, ding. It didn't work for 7 years trying to focus it into existence. What happened was you let it go, and it came in. Life just happened. You got off of it, and life just went, oh my God, thank God. She's relaxed enough to let it in. So, What the Bleep was an amazing experience, but it wasn't, it was just the next step. I ended up crashing and burning out of What the Bleep. A 11-year partnership broke up. What the Bleep eventually, it went its own way. What to do next, in the breakup of my life and my partnership, and a conversation I had with a man called John Perkins, who I was interviewing him. He was talking about South American shamans and a tribe in the Brazilian rainforest who had a very amazing genderfied society. And the men all the tribe activities were based along gender. The guys did guy things. They hunted, they fished, they cut down trees to build huts and make weapons and canoes. The women took care of the children, did all the domestic chores. But this tribe was unique because they understood, as men and women, they understood human nature, from the spiritual down to the muck between their toes. And they understood that men are different from women. Whoa. I should be burned at the stake as a feminist at this point. And equality does not mean sameness. And so, knowing human nature, knowing the masculine and its drive, and its beautiful ability to do that, and the feminine nature, which is in tune and in harmony with the community. A woman is in her cycles, she's in her body. The women understood the needs of the community. The women, the men knew and trusted, were in relationship with the environment. They could feel the needs of the earth. And so the tribe was structured so that men and women were equal on tribal council, but there was one job in the tribe that was the most important job in the tribe, and the survival of the tribe depended on the women performing this one task. And it was up to the women to tell the men when to stop, because the men didn't know how. We've got enough trees. We don't need any more huts. We're in a drought, guys. We're not going to have any more babies for a few years. We don't need to cut down any more trees. Stop. And the further question was that he was broached with the shaman that he was talking to, and he was relating the story to me. It was like he was asked, where are your women in the Western culture? What are they doing? Why are they not telling the men to stop? Our world is going over a cliff with resource depletion. Why are they not telling the men to stop? Yeah, I get cold chills every time I tell this story. And I was just like, oh, holy God. I didn't even know what to do with it, but I knew that my life was unalterably changed at that moment. That I had been raised, I had somehow become that left brain, pedal to the metal, doesn't know how to stop, red switch always on person. And that was what sent me to South America. I had no clue what the feminine even was about. I was filled with the light. I could go to the light. I could out of body almost at will. And I didn't have a clue what lay in the rest of my psyche, my soul, or my body. And when I went to South America, the first thing I did was work with a shaman in the Peruvian rainforest. And I did something called ayahuasca. And ayahuasca is a feminine plant, feminine energy, healing medicine that the shamans almost always use first, especially for Westerners. Because being a feminine entity, she heals the mind. And that's why they use it, because all the Westerners who come to them are so screwed up. And they've got such ideas about everything from the mud between their toes to enlightenment that they have to heal the mind. And the shaman that I was working with, he even called me demented. I mean, it wasn't just me personally, it was all of us were demented. And I was like, ah. And then, and to kind of like do an addendum to that, I recently run across some information by a guy by the name of Leonard Shlain, Dr. Leonard Shlain. He wrote a book called The Alphabet versus the Goddess. And he explains what happens when, he explains how after millennia, eons of goddess worship, within a 2,000-year period, all of a sudden, we switched to masculine deities, and that the guys killed off the girls. And it's that the left brain, when it focuses, and literacy was the first thing that engaged the left side of the brain in humanity. And when literacy came in, the goddess went out the door. And he drew a fabulous chart that is a syncopated rhythm between the rise of literacy and the fall of the feminine, and any respect for the feminine, any respect and regard for the emotional, chaotic, dark, deep, wounded places in all of us, men and women alike. And it was like, so the fall of the goddess, with the rise of the alphabet in Mesopotamia and Egypt, and then in Greece, and then we go into the Dark Ages, and the literacy rate plummeted down to like 1 or 2% in Europe. Well, you would have thought that women would have been dog meat at that point. They weren't. There was an incredible rise in the value of the feminine at that point. We came out of the Dark Ages with bards singing about romantic love and the beauty of the feminine. And the Black Madonna was all over Europe. And then Gutenberg's printing press came out in the 1500s. And the witch hunts began. Coincidence? I don't think so. So, ayahuasca introduced me to my body and my wounding and my dark places and the things that I never wanted to look at in my absolute focus on the light and all things positive. Because if I could bypass, and I mean, I've heard this term, spiritual bypassing, and boy was I good at it. Ayahuasca took me to a place in my body that was like being crushed under a boulder. And the depression would have been a really good gay affair. It was so intense where she took me and I was like, oh, I can move my energy of my chakras. Oh yeah, she's just like, sister, you ain't got a clue. And where she took me was into my DNA. And in my DNA was programs of despair, of our wild, free, right-sided, fluid, unboxable being, men and women, But the feminine especially had been wounded because it was the feminine expression that has been denied for thousands of years. And this place was so horrific, I didn't know what to do. But I saw that it was what had constricted the heart of my mother and killed her with heart disease. It is what had put my grandmother into a wheelchair and killed her with Parkinson's. She was finally frozen into the place where there was no movement and no life. And that's the place I was going, and that's the place my world is going. And seeing it, and feeling it, and recognizing it, and honoring this place in me, that I had who knows how many lifetimes have been avoiding this moment. The pain was so freaking intense. And it was just like, and when I saw it, I was freed of it. Just seeing it and experiencing it, and it lifted. And that was my first ayahuasca journey, realizing this. The second one was, the second one was even, they're no two alike, but this time in the middle of a ceremony, a bandit raid hit the camp, and I was shoved in a small 8x8 plywood room with all my possessions hurled in after me and told to shh. Gunfire, dogs barking. The shaman had run, to go get his gun and was returning fire. And I was facing potential rape, murder, and all the fear. And I realized in that moment I had been locked in so many boxes. I had been locked in so many caves, in so many castle towers, in so many lifetimes, put away in dungeons, and the same scenario over and over. When were we going to finally tap into these dark places in us so that we could release the anger and the rage that is bottled up in men, the wounding that's in men, and let it out so that we would never be in this position again. So I came out of the Amazon going, oh my God, there is so much more to learn. And I investigated, I was like, I have to learn how to release these emotions and feel these places and not run away anymore and go into my dark. And I have to tell you, I have a lot of dark in me, but I know that I'm not alone. Everybody does. It's a balance. We're all light and we're all dark, and they're really an admixture. One is not better than the other. One is a hell of a lot scarier than the other. And so my whole life, these last 5 years, has been about investigating what the hell the feminine even means and where that journey is going to take me. And it's taken me to this place where I have finally learned that I had to let life lead. I'd had intimations of it, when what the bleep came into my life. And intimations because I was led to the Amazon. And intimations that I had to follow my heart. And that's where, when I wrote Unearthing Venus, My Search for the Woman Within, that's where the book kind of leaves off. It sounds like a small thing, but it means letting go everything. It means letting go this whole left brain structure. Not forgetting the mind, not forgetting the masculine, not just got to be all feminine. No. But at least balancing it out. And I ran across a wonderful man by the name of Dr. Darren Weissman. And he and I ended up co-authoring a book, which I've only got a couple of copies back there, called The Heart of the Matter. A simple guide to discovering gifts in strange wrapping paper. Because, yeah, beautiful subtitle. I wish I was like, wow, Darren, I really love that. And what he was talking about and what I came to realize is that all the wounding we have, it's in us. And all of the white light prayers and all of the storyboards and all of the meditations we can't get around it. We got to go through it and unearth it. And the subconscious, the subconscious mind is something like 92 to 98% of all of our decisions and choices in life are made by our subconscious. And guess what's in our subconscious? The dark place that contains all the stuff that we don't know that drives us. And the only way our body and our soul and our spirit can communicate this stuff is through symptoms, negative emotions, fear, pain, suffering, bad things that happen coincidentally. They're all messages. It's the only way our psyche can get our attention and go, There is something in you. There's something in you, Cate Montana, that killed your mother, killed your grandmother. It's in your genetic lineage. It's in your DNA. And that fear that you've always had in your life of dying destitute and alone under a bridge someplace, totally abandoned, that's happened to everybody in this room in previous lives. We've all, men and women. Once your usefulness is gone, you're discarded, you're on the midden heap. You don't think that instills fear in a soul? Doesn't get locked into our genetics? So it was all in me, and I was like, oh my God. So we wrote this wonderful book, and it has a very simple technique in it called the see, feel, hear process that, you know, it's once you start cave diving, it's like, there's so much in there, you just don't think that there's ever going to be a big enough spoon to get it all out. But it really works, because all of, what we resist persists. By God, it does. And it bites us in the ass all the time when we least expect it. And we go, God, how did that happen? So, evoking and just seeing, like I'd experienced in the jungles in the Amazon, just seeing something, going, oh God, I'm just really afraid to get up and do this, and I have this feeling in my stomach. Well, instead of just going, soldiering on, it's like, okay, well, and go in and feel it and see, what's the message? What does it have? What gift does it have? It always has a gift. An illness. Oh my God, I have arthritis. Oh my God, I get migraines. What is this? And so, I don't need to done this point. You all are familiar with all of this. And I can see that I need to wrap this up.
No, you don't.
Thank you. I'm going to make sure I don't miss something. Feeling. And being awake to every feeling and every emotion that runs through our bodies is such a profound gift. It can be very confusing, but it will always lead us, because the heart's electromagnetic field is 60 times stronger than the electromagnetic field of our brain. If you're in a coherent place of peace, and you don't have to dance in the light to be in a coherent place of peace, but if you're in a state of coherence in your heart and you're feeling love, somebody who's distraught or in chaos can walk into a room, and your heart's magnetic field is so strong that you don't even have to touch them. You can alter, your heart will alter and entrain their brain waves 5 feet away. Holy Moses, the heart knows. Scientists are discovering a plexus of nerves in our heart that respond quicker than the brain does to circumstances. And so, how many times we've all experienced it. Oh my God, this just happened, and I just did this, and it was against all logic and common sense, but I just did this, and it was the right choice. That's the heart leading. So, I'm standing here today, well run over with tire tracks and my face pushed into the mud and going, oh my God, is there an end to the darkness? And I don't know if there ever is. But, once you face it, it's just manageable. I think we get afraid of what we're afraid of most. And I've been well trained, like all of us. It's like, oh my God, has anybody here you can't afford the luxury of a negative thought? Have you ever heard that? Yeah. Okay, well, that's one of a popular book out there. You can't afford the luxury of a negative thought, because if you have a negative thought, what's going to happen? Oh my God, I'm going to attract that into my life. I can't worry about dying alone under a bridge. I'll die alone under a bridge. So we're in a damned if you do, damned if you don't position. It's just like we're told you can't afford the luxury of a negative thought. You can't feel this wounding. You can't spend weeks or days or months or however long it takes to move through these wounded places. You can't do that, because, oh my God, what am I going to manifest from this terrible place? But the news is, you're already manifesting from that terrible place. It's a suppurating, closed wound that never heals, because we never unearth what's driving it. So I'm standing up here, and I'm living to tell the tale, and diving in and not being so perplexed by thinking I had to be a certain way, and feeling everything and letting it in and letting life lead is I don't know, comes highly recommended. Because, you know, you've never seen a heart that did well without a head. And by God, we do not see heads, talking heads, doing very well, living without a heart. It is, in essence, a combination of all of it. I had part of the picture as a little girl doing my right brain, you know, letting life in and the sensuality and the beauty of it, but I was an innocent. And then the left brain experience came in, and I had the other side of the picture. And now, I think for all of us in the world's health and our own salvation, it's time to blend the two with the light and the dark and know that it's all one. Thank you so much.
We're about to do a Simon and Garfunkel song. Y'all remember the vest that Artie wore at the Central Park concert? It's the same one. I'm just saying.
I was going to play Simon anyway, because I'm a short one.
Yeah.
My hair's straighter than yours these days. Yeah. Okay.
We hope this has something to do with something. Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again. Because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping, and the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence. In restless dreams I walk alone, narrow streets of cobblestone.